Picture a swirling mass of icy air high above the North Pole, an immense invisible force that shapes the very nature of winter across the northern hemisphere. This is the polar vortex, a phenomenon that sits at the heart of our planet's coldest weather patterns. It's a vast, spinning pool of frigid, low-pressure air in the stratosphere, acting as a fortress that locks Arctic cold in place. The polar vortex isn't just a single storm or a passing weather event. It's a semi-permanent feature, circling the pole like a guardian, season after season. When the vortex is strong, the jet stream forms a tight, fast barrier, keeping the cold contained and giving Europe and North America milder winters. The jet stream, a high-altitude river of wind, acts as the boundary between the icy Arctic and the more temperate regions to the south. But when the vortex weakens, the jet stream wobbles and dips, opening gates for Arctic air to escape southward. This shift can happen suddenly, triggered by changes in temperature, pressure, or even disturbances from lower in the atmosphere. This breakdown can unleash severe cold snaps far from the pole. Cities that usually see mild winters can suddenly find themselves in the grip of bone-chilling temperatures and biting winds. The polar vortex's stability is delicate, influenced by both stratospheric and surface conditions. Even small changes in the atmosphere can ripple upward, disturbing the vortex and setting off a chain reaction that affects weather thousands of kilometers away. When forecasters mention the polar vortex, they're talking about this high-altitude system and its grip on the Arctic. Meteorologists study its every move, knowing that a shift in the vortex can mean the difference between a gentle winter and a season of extremes. A strong vortex means predictable winters, stable, with fewer surprises and less risk of sudden, severe cold. A weak one can bring chaos, sending frigid air plunging into places unprepared for such extremes, and turning ordinary winters into memorable ones. The difference between a mild winter and a deep freeze often comes down to the state of this invisible, spinning guardian. Its influence stretches far beyond the Arctic, touching the lives of millions. Understanding the polar vortex is key to predicting winter extremes. Scientists use satellites, weather balloons, and computer models to track its strength and anticipate its next move. It's not a storm you see, but its effects can be felt across continents. From sudden blizzards to prolonged cold spells, the polar vortex's reach is vast and powerful. When the vortex falters, millions brace for the Arctic's icy reach. Communities prepare for power outages, icy roads, and the challenges of surviving in extreme cold. The polar vortex is both a shield and a threat. Its mood sets the tone for winter. It can protect us from the worst of the cold, or unleash it with little warning. The question each year, will it hold, or will the cold break free? The answer lies high above the Arctic, in the swirling heart of the polar vortex. Europe's deep freeze in winter 2025 began with a rare sudden stratospheric warming, or SSW, in late November. Temperatures in the Arctic stratosphere soared by 30 degrees C in days, destabilizing the polar vortex before winter even peaked. This early SSW, unusual for November, set the stage for weeks of atmospheric chaos. The quasi-biennial oscillation, in its easterly phase, made the vortex even more vulnerable to disruption. Waves from below broke in the stratosphere, releasing heat and deforming the vortex. Meteorologists watched as the effects slowly filtered down, knowing a major cold outbreak was likely for Europe. By December, the jet stream buckled. Arctic air was on the move. With the polar vortex weakened, the powerful jet stream that usually acts as a barrier between frigid Arctic air and milder southern climates lost its strength and began to meander unpredictably. Instead of flowing in a straight, stable path, the jet stream developed dramatic curves and loops, setting the stage for a major atmospheric shift. These deep, sweeping waves in the jet stream allowed pockets of Arctic air to spill much farther south than usual, guided by the jet stream's new, chaotic path. This meandering motion created corridors for cold air to escape the polar regions and surge into Europe, disrupting the usual weather patterns. High-pressure systems over Scandinavia or Greenland set up the infamous beast from the east, funneling bitter Siberian cold directly into the heart of Europe. This high pressure acted like a wall, blocking milder Atlantic air and forcing the cold to dig in deeper. As the frigid air crossed the relatively warmer waters of the North and Baltic Seas, it picked up extra moisture. This transformed the cold into heavy, persistent snow for countries like the UK, Germany, and Poland, blanketing cities and countryside alike. By mid-December, a massive high-pressure block displaced the vortex even further, opening the floodgates for relentless cold to pour southward. The usual defenses were down, and winter's grip tightened. One lobe of the weakened vortex shifted over North America, while another settled over Siberia, leaving Europe exposed and vulnerable to the full force of Arctic air. Temperatures plunged and stayed low for weeks, with cities like Paris and Berlin locked in a deep freeze. Streets that were usually bustling became quiet under layers of snow and ice. The cold was persistent, not just a brief snap. Snow lingered on the ground, rivers and lakes froze solid, and daily life slowed to a crawl as Europe endured a true Arctic siege. The weakened vortex couldn't pull the cold back north, leaving millions in the grip of Arctic air. People bundled up against the chill, their breath visible in the icy air, as the cold seemed unending. Europe's usual Atlantic moderation vanished, replaced by a harsh continental winter. The contrast between stormy coasts and frozen interiors was stark and unforgettable. The fortress had fallen. Winter's full force arrived, transforming Europe into a landscape of ice and snow, and reminding everyone of the power held by the Arctic above. Last winter, Europe enjoyed one of its warmest seasons on record, thanks to a strong, stable polar vortex. Cities from Paris to Berlin saw temperatures well above average, and many people spent more time outdoors, enjoying the rare winter sunshine. The mild weather brought a sense of relief after years of unpredictable cold snaps. The jet stream flowed straight, letting mild Atlantic air dominate and keeping cold spells brief. This steady pattern meant fewer disruptions, with only short-lived cold fronts making their way across the continent. For many, it felt like winter had lost its bite. This year, everything changed with the early SSW in November 2025. The sudden stratospheric warming event was unexpected and sent shockwaves through the meteorological community. The vortex broke down before it could strengthen, flipping the pattern from stability to chaos. Weather models struggled to keep up as the atmosphere became increasingly unpredictable. Now, instead of warmth and predictability, Europe faces a prolonged, dangerous freeze. Streets that were once bustling are now quiet, as people brace against biting winds and heavy snowfall. The contrast is stark. Last year's mildness lulled many into complacency. Few were prepared for such a dramatic reversal, and the difference is visible everywhere, from city parks to rural roads. This winter is a harsh reminder of how quickly the atmosphere can shift. Commuters now battle snowdrifts and icy sidewalks, and daily routines have been upended by the relentless cold. The difference comes down to one event, the SSW that shattered the vortex's grip. It's a powerful example of how a single atmospheric event can reshape an entire season. Europe's energy and infrastructure, prepared for a mild season, now struggle to keep up. Power grids are under strain, and heating demands have soared, catching many off guard. The lesson: winter's mood can change in an instant. As Europe adapts to this new reality, it's a stark reminder that nature's patterns are never guaranteed, and preparation is key for whatever the next season may bring. Europe's geography and energy system make it especially vulnerable to polar vortex breakdowns. The continent sits directly in the path of Arctic outflows, with no mountains to block the cold. When high pressure builds over Greenland or Scandinavia, frigid air sweeps unimpeded from Siberia to the Atlantic. This direct route means temperature drops are swift and severe. Europe's energy system, especially natural gas, is finely balanced, designed for typical winters, not prolonged deep freezes. Early cold snaps already forced countries to tap reserves sooner than planned. A long freeze strains supplies and spikes prices, making the market sensitive to every forecast. Geography and energy dependence put Europe on the front line of every polar vortex event. As temperatures plunge, energy demand soars, heating bills spike, and grids strain under the load. Households and businesses face financial pressure, while power outages become a real threat. Heavy snow and ice disrupt transport, close schools, and challenge emergency services. Agriculture suffers. Winter crops risk winter kill without snow cover, and livestock need extra care. Food prices may rise as crop losses mount. The cold hits the vulnerable hardest, forcing tough choices between heat and essentials. Isolation and health risks increase, especially for the elderly and low-income families. This winter is more than a weather event. It's a test of resilience for millions. The 2025 polar vortex collapse isn't unprecedented. History offers warnings. In 2021, Texas froze as its unprepared grid failed, leaving millions in the dark and hundreds dead. The lesson: infrastructure must be ready for rare extremes. Europe's 2024 cold snap was a dress rehearsal, causing travel chaos and energy spikes. These events show the real, costly impact of a weakened vortex. Preparedness is everything. Energy systems must be winterized, and the public kept informed. Past failures and successes shape today's response. The atmosphere's power demands respect and readiness. The 2025 deep freeze is a battle between atmospheric layers. The polar vortex spins in the stratosphere, while our weather unfolds in the troposphere below. Sometimes, powerful weather systems send waves upward, triggering sudden stratospheric warming. This disrupts the vortex, making the jet stream wavy and letting Arctic air plunge south. In 2025, the jet stream's buckle created a direct path for Siberian cold into Europe. Climate change may be making these events more likely. Arctic warming weakens the jet stream, increasing instability. The science is evolving, but the trend is clear. As the Arctic warms, the polar vortex's grip may weaken. Extreme cold snaps could become more common, even on a warming planet. Understanding these forces is crucial for future preparedness. As the freeze continues, practical steps matter. Insulate your home, block drafts, and dress in layers to retain heat. Prepare for power outages. Keep flashlights, batteries, and non-perishable food ready. Never use unsafe heating methods indoors. Carbon monoxide is deadly. Check on vulnerable neighbors and family, especially the elderly and those living alone. Stay informed with weather updates and follow local advice. Limit time outdoors and cover exposed skin to prevent frostbite. Preparation and community support are the best defenses against winter's worst.